Everybody, welcome. We are here, the
Woo.
final one of the X's and Noles spring position preview. It's happening right now / review analysis series. We are X's and Noles presented by Noles 24/7, the venerable, the best, the pinnacle of FSU sports and recruiting coverage. I'm here with my two friends. I'm here with Adam. I'm here with Kevin, and I am Trey Rowland. Today, we're going to be talking about the back seven exclusively. We're going to be talking about linebackers and DBs, two very interesting position groups. One, I think, is much more questionable than the other. We will get to that. This is our last of the spring analysis series. Next week, I think we're going to be giving everybody like a how to watch the spring game, like how to watch a spring game, what to watch for an FSU spring game, and then, boys, film review. We are going to review that beautiful spring game footage, and we're going to milk that teat for all that it is worth. I cannot wait. Adam, I think we're going to start with linebackers, and I want your opinion to start everything off. What did you think of Florida State's linebacker play last year? What they have to replace in Tatum Bethune and Kalen Deloach, and ultimately the guys that they retained and brought in to do so? What do you think about all that?
First, it's a bold strategy to start with me because some might call me negative.
Well, get it out of the way now, I guess.
I don't know where that came from. I think more so than having to replace skill and talent, they're having just to replace reps and experience, and that's something that you can't just coach. Like that's going to come with time more than like what they're talking about in the classroom and that kind of stuff. Like those guys just need to get out there and get snaps in this defense and with next to each other, learn their tendencies and learn how Daryl Jackson handles a double team in front of him and where the angle is going to be and what it's going to look like when they see certain running backs and how if their speed's different, think of Kalen Deloach. He's seen Will Shipley multiple years in a row. He knew Will Shipley like the back of his hand. DJ Lundy or Sean Murphy or Blake Nicholson, like obviously Will Shipley's not there anymore, but the Maffa kid is back for Clemson. Like they've never seen him before, so they're going to have to. It's going to be different for them, and so it's just that experience. Like there's a lot of experience in the linebacker room that's got to get kind of learned on the fly here, and then. Like you did give up some skill. DJ Lundy's not as fast and as explosive as Kalen Deloach is, but he's probably at his ceiling is a better player than Tatum Bethune, I think. But we haven't seen him in full game, like just out there. It's his job all the time. So
right.
It's hard to say. And then behind him, it's a lot of young guys. It's Omar Graham, who the staff hypes up quite a bit, but we haven't seen it. He was injured last year. I mean, that's what they've said. That's been the company line. I do believe it's true that he was injured. But I mean, we know from film review that the tape it was not good.
He had flashes, but there was a lot of confusion.
Yeah, there was a lot of bad flashes too that were really concerning. And then you bring Sean Murphy in from Alabama, and there's a lot of buzz around that. But again, this is an unproven player that he didn't do anything at Alabama, but he was really highly regarded coming out of high school. And you haven't heard his name quite a bit this spring. And I think that maybe is a little concerning because we're hoping that he would step into the limelight there a little bit and seize an opportunity. And it seems like right now the player who's maybe taking that step, or I should say players that are taking that step, are Justin Cryer, who we loved in the exhibition against Georgia, and the staff loves, and then Blake Nicholson also.
And that's a positive development because say what you will about FSU's linebacker play, it went from a unit like a couple years ago that was getting actively picked on in the middle of the field to one that I think you could argue your most impactful defensive player from the front half of the season was a linebacker in Kalen Deloach, and he was consistently one of the most impactful. Think of that play at Clemson. That's a season defining, that's a conference championship defining play from two veteran linebackers.
It's just a note on the experience aspect of it that I was talking about earlier. that play itself, or the play against Clemson, where it was the blitz, sack, fumble, touchdown, was a check by them out on the field. That's a heads up experience play there of guys that have been in it and understood what they were looking at. Are you going to get that from some of these younger guys? I would say probably not.
Kev, over to you. What do you think of the way that Adam Fuller and Randy Shannon utilize their linebackers in this scheme? And do you ultimately like the guys that they have now this year? Are they going to be able to do what Randy and Adam have been accustomed to doing for the past couple of years?
Yeah, so something that's kind of different about, how modern linebackers are versus like maybe the last time you played Madden or whatever, or when you were a kid playing football, who knows? This team plays with two linebackers. There's two true linebackers. That's why when we talk about them last year is Kalen Deloach and Tatum Bethune. You need two guys, right? Mm-hmm. They're mostly going to be guys that aren't going to be asked to be coverage guys too much. You saw, Kalen Deloach kind of be a quarterback spy at times, but I think they're not afraid to kind of roll a safety in there and, play some dime sets where there's only one linebacker. I don't think that they're afraid to kind of mix and match if they're not getting the speed out there with like a DJ Lundy. I think that they're willing to throw in an extra defensive back in there to kind of help add speed to the team, because ultimately, like, those two linebackers at most are going to be asked to trail a running back out of the backfield. And so that's not to say that you don't want speed and athleticism, but it is to say that it's more of a plus than it is a requirement. You want these guys to be to help out in the run. You're going to keep Florida State was, towards the top in the league in light box usage, meaning that they're just trying to stop the run with their front six, the four guys down on the line and the two linebackers behind them. So that means those linebackers need to be pretty adept at stopping the run. And so you're hoping that, Lundy takes that step. He's shown to be a decent run stopper as a linebacker, and maybe Sean Murphy's someone else that can kind of interchange with him. And then, who's going to be that guy? Who's going to be the Kalen Deloach? Who's going to be the will linebacker? Who's going to be more likely to take a running back on a wheel route that can also kind of plug holes in the interior? Is Blake Nicholson going to step up? Is it, DeMarco Ward or, Omar Graham? Who knows?
Adam, what do you think of the guys? I mean, getting DJ Lundy back from the Colorado Vortex was a nice coup. Getting him coming back into the fold, that was nice. Sure. What do you think of this group? Are you like, who are the guys that you mentioned? Some names that stand out. Like, overall, what are your feelings about this group? Which names have been standing out to you? I still feel kind of uneasy about it, just because with there only being two linebackers on the field, there does need to be some cohesion between the duos. And we didn't really see a lot of that from the second team linebacker units last year. Of course, when Adam Fuller would do those entire like shift changes of the front seven in the middle of the field during like the second quarter, where everybody would just like chew through their fingers and start throwing blunt objects at their TVs. Linebackers didn't really, the front seven struggled. Let's just say that. So what are your overall thoughts of this unit? Are you feeling some trepidation based on what you've seen?
No.
Okay.
Honestly, no.
You feel why do you say that? Because of them or because of the importance of the position in this defense?
I would say it's because of the importance of the position in defense. And then I also think that like your linebacker core is only going to be as good as the line in front of it. And I do think that you've built a good line in front of them.
Sure.
So I think that at some point that's going to create a floor for this group that they can't really play below, unless they're just incapable of playing at this level. And I don't think that that's the case. So now if you start talking about coverage, like there's things to be seen. We've seen DJ Lundy not be great in coverage in the past, but I think that it seems like they've done a good job of leaning him back down a little bit again, helping him with some of his hip stiffness and some of his fluidity. And it sounds like so far through spring, he's maybe taken the next step as an overall linebacker, which is encouraging, because I think you you definitely need one guy to be able to be relied upon, and it sounds like he's stepping into that role. And then after that, like, I think you can play games like they played a lot. They played dime last year. They put Azari Thomason as a dime backer. There's guys in that secondary, which we'll obviously get to in this episode, but there's guys in that group that on third and longs you can put in to play there. Blake Nicholson is a guy that I think you can get in there and get him reps. We saw him good in coverage last year. I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep about linebacker just because there's only 2 of them on the field at all times. I think they ask them to do very minimal things. The first thing being go stop the run, and then they're protected. They're very protected with what's going on in front of them. So I think a lot of people do a lot of hand wringing over linebacker. I'm not going to be one of them.
And even more so with the construction of this defensive line, deep and built to stop the run. They're going to have a bunch of clean reads, which is going to help the younger guys like the Blakes and the Omar Grahams and the Sean Murphys to an extent. It's going to make their reads easier and give them clear lanes to use, like Blake and Sean's athleticism that they have.
Let me ask you guys a question. So do you think there's any coincidence that the best year the linebackers have had in the last couple was last year when they also had the best defensive line in front of them?
Go ahead, Kev.
I mean, I don't think that's a coincidence.
Do we think Kalen Deloach took that big of a jump as a player?
Well, Tatum Bethune 2 years ago was.
Yeah, I think he did. He took go ahead.
Tatum Bethune, his first year at FSU, was dealing with a lot of injuries. He got injured in that Louisville game. So it's hard to tell with that. But, I mean, they did take a significant step up. I agree with you, AB. I think that, like, in the 90s, the linebackers were the glue of your defense. That was the most important position on the defense. You saw Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher lead these, like, really great defenses in the NFL, but nowadays that's just not the case. Who are you looking at when you're looking at players that dictate how good a defense is? It's defensive ends. No one's really talking about the linebacker position because it's just being devalued in modern football.
Well, too, and I think they become less of like the matchup nightmare than they were when there were 3 of them on the field. You normally target like the smallest or the slowest linebacker with your slot guy in coverage or with the tight end. And teams have gotten around that by, like you said, getting big ass DBs and just throwing another one on the field. Right. And I'm with you, Adam. I think that there has been a gradual uptick in the quality of play from the linebackers year over year, but there's been like a meteoric uptick in the quality of the play of the defensive backfield behind them with the advent of guys like Renardo Green and Jerrion Jones and having AEM Dent back there. I thought he's going to be a tough guy to replace. We'll talk about him. I just thought that it was less easy pickings and they were very protected, like you said. So I think that's going to work out. And anybody that has impressed you and that if they actually catch on, that could maybe raise the ceiling of this linebacker unit from good to potentially very good to great before we talk about the DBs. Kev, you've seen some of these guys in person. Anybody you think that has like a lot of untapped potential that if they catch on fire, they could just raise the ceiling of this unit?
I think the first answer that for most people probably in and around the program would be Blake Nicholson. I'm not fully convinced that he's going to be someone who gets a lot of meaningful action this year. I think he's more of a developmental guy than people wanted to give him credit for. Incredibly athletic, but if he's a guy that clicks, he clicks. I think in the near future you need Sean Murphy to be what his athleticism looked like in high school.
Sure.
And I think to me for this year, Sean Murphy's the guy that's like, if it clicks, DJ Lundy's going to be your Tatum Bethune and he can be your Kalen Deloach. And you've got 2 really good linebackers that you can kind of to build around. But if it doesn't with him, well, now you're searching a bunch of young guys to try to see who can step up in a role that's, takes a year or 2 to kind of own.
And with all we saw last year Florida State's younger linebackers got taken advantage of when there was a lot of eye candy, eye manipulation, formations, multi-run sets, jet sweep motions, things like that. And those are the kind of the growing pains that you took. And if a guy like a Sean Murphy steps up, hopefully you get to take less of those this year. Adam, what about you? What do you feel about a guy that could maybe raise the ceiling of this group if they catch fire?
Well, I think the natural answer is Blake Nicholson because he's the most athletic of that group. But I think Justin Cryer might be the player that is the one that I think he'll be my answer because I think that he gives you what they want to do the most is stop the run. I mean, I think he's a guy that's just going to go bang his head on the wall and he's going to be in the right gap most of the time to make the play in the run game. And ultimately, I mean, that's what they want to do with their front six. I mean, we're talking about this video as a back seven, but their front six, which is the 4 down linemen and the 2 linebackers, they want to stop the run with that group. They want to force the run with those 6 guys. And I think he's a player that maybe gives you the best chance to do that alongside of DJ Lundy. So I think that maybe the ceiling is not the correct aspect of how I'm answering this question, but I think he maybe is going to give you a higher floor than what a lot of these other guys. And that for me, with what's going on at linebacker, is more important than anything.
And to me, with the way that the defense is built, they're going to be very hard to run against. Maybe definitely not as many sacks as you had last year. They're going to be really hard to throw against, and we're going to tell you why. Maybe just having a guy who's in the right spot, being competent over and over, like a Justin Cryer. And if you get some plus play out of that, but as long as he's in his spot, not getting taken advantage of, this is a tough defense to string drives against, I think. Yeah. And to me, the main reason is what we're going to talk about now. I want to talk about the defensive backfield, and I want to talk about the cornerbacks, the 2 outside guys and the people that we're thinking at nickel. Because I think if you ask me, I think this is the strength of the defense, but I think of the entire team. Because this is where guys like Azareye'h Thomas reside. This is where a former All-ACC guy like Fentrell Cypress resides in his second year. And you got a kid with all the potential in the world with Alabama transfer Earl Little, and then a guy that I love, a little scrappy boot boy from Louisiana, Greedy Vance. I love that kid. Kev, I'm going to give you first crack. What do you think about the guys playing quarterback from FSU? Expound upon the guys that I mentioned, and then maybe some of the other guys in the wings. Like, how do you think opposing wide receivers are going to have a tough time against Florida State this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just last year was such a resounding success for that secondary. They found that they could play man. They could look you in the eyes, tell you they're going to play man, and play man for an entire game. And there wasn't anything people could do about it. And I don't think it's because, Jarian Jones and Renardo Green were just such exceptional athletes. Don't get me wrong.
It helped.
They're really, really talented players, but they're not guys that are irreplaceable in terms of frames. And to be frank, I think you have guys on the roster that, might have higher ceilings than either of those guys, which is nice to have. I mean, I've got a stat sitting here that says when Florida State played man, which they played a lot of man coverage, they had the 6th best passer rating in the country. Compared to other teams playing man. So that's going to be their identity. That's what they're going to do. And you've got a lot of length out there. You've got AZ Thomas, you've got Fentrell Cypress, and then behind them is a whole bunch of young guys that, depending on kind of how things shake up, I've been very vocal that Quindarius Jones, I think he might be their number 3 outside corner as a guy. He's 6'2", 6'3". He was a track guy in high school. He's someone they really like, and it's because he's got that long frame. They want to be able to just take away those deep routes and sit those safeties kind of in the slant window. So any sort of short underneath route is getting picked by a safety. So you've got to get all your bases covered, right? So I feel pretty confident about this secondary. I think it's going to be the strength of the defense, and honestly, it might be the best position group on the team.
Adam, what do you think about that? Do you agree with kind of Kev's thoughts? Do you think that the level of cornerback play could actually be better this year than last year with losing a guy who I thought was the best DB on the team, and Renardo Green, just rock solid. Love him forever. I think he's going to be a great multi-year NFL vet. What do you think? Do you think there's a potential for this unit to be better than last year, even with probably a more subdued pass rush in 2024? And then who are the guys like in that next group that we haven't mentioned that you think are poised for an ascension?
Better. I think I'm hard pressed to say better. And we're not including safety maybe yet, but just as far as corner, I mean, you think about Renardo Green, you think about Fentrell last year, and it seems like Azarie has certainly seized the role of alpha in that group, and that's a good thing. He's had a hell of a spring so far. I don't think that that's any big secret. Fentrell, Cypress is a player that I think a lot of people were down on maybe coming into this spring, but I can tell you that he's had a great spring himself.
He's solid. I think the reason there is because teams did pick on him a little bit, certain the run game, and some of his misses were bad, but he
cleaned a lot of that up in the back half of the year, especially
Yes,
after that Duke game. And a lot of the coverage stuff for him was actually maybe not being helped out by some of the safeties. And we certainly pointed some of that out on film reviews last year. So I think he's poised to have another really good year. It's hard for me to say that like AZ is going to be better than Renardo because Renardo was really damn good. So I'm hard pressed to say that yes, AZ is going to have to be better than Renardo, even though I think that AZ's ceiling is higher than Renardo's.
Sure, yeah.
But it does seem like Fentrell is going to be better. I think you're going to take a little bit of a slide back in the nickel, though, even though I think Earl Little Jr. is super talented. And Adam Fuller's called him the best high school film he's ever seen. I mean, Jarian Jones was really freaking good.
He's like one of the best nickels in the entire country, like by all the stats, right?
It's tough to – now, obviously, they're going to ask Earl to do some different stuff, I would assume, because they're different types of football players. But I just have a hard time saying that you're going to be better there with Earl Little Jr., who doesn't have a lot of collegiate snaps under his belt, going against what we just saw as one of the best nickel defenders in the country last year. So I don't think it's going to be a massive slide backwards, but I do think you maybe take a little bit of a step back. But then, backing some of these dudes up. I mean, you mentioned Greedy Vance also in the nickel. It seems like Kevin Knowles has maybe made his way back up into the nickel corner position.
That'll be interesting. That'll be interesting development.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where he's at coming out of the spring. Like, I'm pretty sure he's dinged up and not working. I want to say that I thought he was recovering from an injury or a surgery potentially. And then, you've got guys like Jabril Rawls. I know Dane's been hyping Jabril up quite a bit as an outside corner. Another younger guy, I mean, a second-year guy. Sugar.
Edwin Joseph is a guy that they were very.
That's a guy I was really high coming out of high school. He's playing a little nickel. He's playing a little outside. That's a guy that I think maybe not this year, but the coaches have paid a lot of attention to him, which is certainly encouraging. Mm-hmm. Adam Fuller's mentioned him a few times early in spring. He's a guy that I think brings some of that toughness, some of that grit and effort that you want in your DB room. So I'm excited to see what he does. And obviously got your young guys and
young guys.
Yeah. Kai Bates. You got Charles Lester. So there's just a lot of really, really young guys that they're also bringing along. I mean, this room's loaded. I mean, there's no denying that. They've got to get them caught up to speed, the young guys especially. It's amazing, and I got to give a hat tip here. Like, we sat 2 years ago talking about these guys don't trust Marcus Woodson when you're watching them on tape, and then to see the transformation that's happened.
Totally different secondary.
It showed.
Incredible.
There was so much freelancing, if you remember in those videos from years ago, man, where it was just if they played assignment football, and so much of that got cleaned up in 1 year. It's very having a guy, a former Dolphin, fends up like Pat Surtain, having multiple years with this type of clay. I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I do too.
Anything else you guys want to say about the corners before we move to the safeties? Because there's some intrigue here. There's some uncertainty here, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. I think that people are underselling the loss of Akeem Dent much more than I think that they should be. Kevin, I think that there was a noticeable difference when he was out. And I thought you got picked on in the run game on your defensive backfield a lot when he was out. And I think a lot of those issues shored up with the healthy veteran AEM Dent presence in the backfield. He is gone. What do you think of the guys that are there? Some of the guys that are coming up, some of the transfers that they brought in, like an elder statesman of Devontae Brown from the University of Miami. Who do you think? It's confusing. Like, who do you think is going to be? Who's going to step up and fill that AEM Dent role? And what do you think of the room as a whole?
All right, I was curious. FSU last season with AEM Dent on the field allowed 4.1 yards per play. Without him on the field, guess what they gave up?
6.2.
5.0.
Shoot.
So almost all. Actually, so with him on the field, they would be tied for best. If he played every snap, they would be tied for the best offense or best defense in the country with Iowa last year in terms of yards per play. So without him, they're close to, they're in the 20s. So
It's like pedestrian. Yeah, you go from an elite to a pedestrian unit, and you could see it. Specifically, runs that could have been stopped for 2 to 3 yards. Those were the ones without AEM on the field, man. 25 to 30-yard gains. Are we going to be seeing a lot more of those this year, Kev? And who might be able to stop that, in your opinion? Because you got Shyheim Brown back, and you're working in some other people.
Yeah, so I think Shyheim Brown, is similar to your DJ Lundy's and your Pat Payton. He's a guy that's been in the program. You've seen us step up every year. Now it's his turn, right? Now you're going to see how these investments in these guys that were, these high 3-star guys that had a lot of potential. Well, now what are they going to be doing now that the team's theirs, now that they've been developed and molded by the staff, molded by the culture? And it's time for Shyheim Brown to step up. It's time for him to be able to kind of cover for there's only so much you can do covering for the other safety, but to be that influence, to be the guy that makes the other guy better. And I think he was at the level last year where he made himself, like he did his job, and he was there, and he took huge strides in kind of the player that he can be. But it's time for him to be a leader and kind of make the other side better. Last year you really like plugging gaps at safety. We kind of talked about it all year, without AEM Dent, Kevin Noles, who was the guy?
You threw Conrad Hytch in there as like a young guy, and there were flashes of brilliance, and there were times when he got taken advantage of, which as the position goes. I'm just interested who's. I think we all have a fairly good consensus that Shyheim's going to be a starting safety. With linebacker, it is funny. You said DJ Lundy. It's like, who's going to be his running mate at safety? Like, who's going to be DJ Lundy's primary running mate at linebacker? Adam, who do you think? See, it's tougher to answer than people realize.
It's going to be Hussey.
I think everybody naturally is going to say Conrad Hytch because he's the most talented answer that you can come up with.
Yes.
It's not going to shock me if Devontae Brown, the Miami transfer via UCF, who was a corner, is a guy that they decide to go to next to Shyheim Brown.
Does that worry you? Because this was a guy that was highly coveted 2 years ago out of the transfer portal.
No, because Miami can't
coach.
Coach. Yeah, no.
Anything.
No, it doesn't worry me.
Okay, good. Why do you say that?
He has proven it. He showed that he can be a playmaker.
He was real good at UCF.
Yeah, he was really good at UCF. And then he goes to Miami and he's dog, you know what? Because that's what they do coaching.
Dog, you know what? The worst kind of dog substance.
So do I think he's going to revitalize his career? Do I think he's a superstar? No, I'm not trying to say that or insinuate that. Do I think that he provides some clarity for the staff potentially? That wouldn't shock me coming out of spring, heading into next season. They they tend to like safe and reliable over
flashy and explosive
and
at the
we don't know
beginning
what
of the
the heck
year.
we're going to get. Yeah.
At the beginning of the year, I'm with you. I think that's
I
interesting.
mean, ultimately, Conrad Huskies needs to win this job. Like, let's not get it twisted. Like, he needs to win this job. He's the most talented. He's got the highest ceiling of anybody in that room back there.
Yeah.
He gives you the ability to come up and lay the wood in the run game. Also a great coverage player. I mean, we've seen him do these things. He needs to find that consistency. He needs to go seize this moment and opportunity, and we'll see if he can do that or not. That's the position that worries me the most. Like, it is scary because if he doesn't, and you're relying on Devontae Brown, and maybe he's not the player at safety that he was at corner 2 years ago. I mean, then what? You have KJ Kirkland, but he's another younger player, talented, was a track star, through high school, a talented upside play, but a guy that I'm not sure you're ready to rely on him a lot either. And then what? Then it's really scary.
Yeah, it starts to you got to hit, and that's the one thing when you kind of play it. When you play it the way that Florida State has played it with some of the safety recruiting over the last couple of years, you have reduced the margins for error. Like, you need some of these guys to hit. You're banking on your development. You're banking on like KJ. It maybe a good bet because before injuries, KJ Kirkland was the guy that was turning heads at Florida State in practices last year. He turned Kev's head. He noticed him. He noticed him immediately.
Absolutely.
How do we expect, Kevin, if you want to just give the viewers a little bit of info on how Adam Fuller likes to use safeties in this defense, do we think that Shyheim Brown could maybe become, because he's very versatile, like maybe like a Jamie Robinson 2.0 where they're having him around like the line of scrimmage, asking him to do different things, maybe some delayed blitzes, or do we think that they're going to play this unit a little bit safer than they did when Jamie was at his best, in my opinion, when they asked him to do a lot of stuff?
No, I think Shaheem's going to be that guy. I mean, if you're going to compare him to someone like where you want his ceiling to be, where he like the guy, right? Like you look at Kyle Hamilton 2 years ago, right? He's another safety that's 6'2" plus. That's a longer guy, and you see them using him in a similar role where he'll come in as kind of a dime backer every once in a while, or they'll roll him down into the slot, but he'll also be a guy that'll let you play some cover 3 and play it really well as a rangy middle of the field guy. And they didn't play a lot of cover 3, but they might have a little bit more freedom to do that as he kind of can explore new things and kind of I think he's a piece that needs to be dynamic. He's a guy that they've been talking about for years. We saw flashes of really great athleticism last year. And I think he's a guy you can use all over the place, right? We've seen him on these delayed blitzes. We've seen him as a deep defender. We've seen him as kind of that post safety and in a cover 4 scheme. I think you've got to build this secondary around, using him as a guy,
I'm with you. And you want him to be a guy for you because big balls Adam Fuller, the Massachusetts Mangler himself, he doesn't blitz in the volume and frequency that maybe a lot of people would prefer, but I would say that he's got a preternatural ability to call blitzes at the right time, specifically with his defensive backs. I think that I like him being able to have a multifaceted tool like a Shyheim Brown clicking on all cylinders, because that's when Adam Fuller is at his best as a defensive coordinator, when he's able to change the picture post snap, be multiple on the back end, and bring blitzes from multiple different angles that can ultimately change the outcome of football games. Like a lot of those impactful blitzes, like think with Kalen Deloach, even though that wasn't called, the blitz with AEM Dent against the University of Florida, that was the fake call, things like that. There's just all these times where Adam Fuller will dial up a blitz at the right time in the right situation. It'll make a huge impact. And he does it a lot of times utilizing his cornerbacks and his safeties. So
yes. So to kind of add to that point, I mean, he's proven to be really effective with generating pressure and knowing how to do it. So
That's a good way to put it.
at least last year, and I would argue the year before the pressure rate was higher than it probably had any right to be. But last year they were the 68th highest blitz rate team at 27% of dropbacks, but they had the 4th most sacks in the country. So, sorry.
Do you guys remember what all the talking points were before the second half of Clemson?
We got a blitz.
We got a blitz. We got a blitz, and Adam Fuller's too passive in the first half.
Yes, we let the game come to you. That we absorbed all the punishment. I think I'm trying to go back to that fan discussion from back then, but I feel like that was all a lot of consternation about that.
And then after the second half of that Clemson game on to through the end of the year, there was no first half. They just were balls to the wall the entire time. Is there any concerns for you guys? Not that that's what the point of this show is, but is there any concern for you guys that Adam Fuller takes a step back in his aggressiveness with a defense that's not as seasoned as he had last year?
There is a concern for me if he gets burned early a couple times with it, because I think you have seen them, particularly with a Conrad Hytch, if you're not playing sound assignment football, there is the tendency to kind of drop back and then go into the mode of letting teams try to make long drives on you. I'm not particularly concerned about that though, because if you're going to need to up the aggression right out of the gate, it's with a defense that's hard to get chunk runs against, maybe not going to generate a ton of pressure from that front four, and you have a killer secondary that can man you up on the outside. If he doesn't go, because to me that's a recipe for twists and stunts and blitzes and aggression and confusion. If he doesn't start the year like that against Georgia Tech, I will be concerned. I think he learned his lesson from the second half of Clemson, and I think in Adam Fuller's heart, in my opinion, I think he's that type of defensive coordinator. I think the type of defense he likes to call mostly resembles the second half of Florida State's 2023 season rather than the first. Kev, what do you think? You've watched a lot of tape on Fuller.
Yeah, if I'm being charitable, I'm going to say that I think they blitz as much as they think that helps the team, if that makes sense. I don't think Norvell, or by extension someone Norvell would trust his defense to, would be the kind of guy that says, I'm going to blitz no matter what because that's what I want to do.
Yeah, it's like a Todd Grantham thing, yeah.
And 2 years ago, I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't think he trusted the secondary to win their man-on-man matchups too much. I think a lot of that came down to his relationship with the defensive backs coach, and where they felt like they were at with that room, and they felt like they're going to trust the defensive line, and they're going to keep 2 safeties back. And if they get killed by not getting enough pressure, they're going to get killed by not getting enough pressure. But they felt like that was the better of 2 evils, and they had a pretty decent defense. And then this year it was just a little bit different. They like I showed you earlier, 4th best team in the country when it came to playing man coverage. That's a team you can blitz behind, right? And I think as long as they can trust the secondary, they're going to be aggressive. But if they can't, then they won't.
I mean, I thought it was a bunch of baloney anyway, but I mean, there was a look. The first half of that Clemson game, it was they couldn't cover, they couldn't hold up in man coverage, and it got to the point where it was like, okay, well, we've just got to go get it.
Clemson playing a lot of man beaters.
Yeah. So I don't know. Just interesting thought. I think it's going to come up over the summertime. I think it's going to become a talking point. Something I've been thinking about through, over the last month or so, just kind of trying to get ahead of what storylines are going to become. Right. Think about stuff to talk about.
People love talking about blitzing.
He's not going to turn into a Jim Johnson or a Sean McDermott, but I'm with you, Kev. He'll blitz as much as he needs to, and if it's effective, it's kind of like with Mike on the offensive side. He's going to keep doing it till it's not effective. So
I thought more than just like blitzing, there was just an aggressive nature to how they play defense in general, and I think it had more to do with them than it did with Adam Fuller. we saw them get up and press more. They were more physical at the line of scrimmage, just across the board.
Something clicked.
It was confidence in their technique.
Yeah,
there was a lot of confidence in their technique that wasn't present before, which allowed them to play faster, which allowed them to get to spots quicker. Now, as we wrap up, since this is the last of our position preview analysis, whatever the hell we call the series 3 weeks into spring, we've looked at every single position group. We are going to look at the spring game. We're going to analyze the roster post, apparently, the apocalypse of all post-spring transfer portals. There will be in, there will be out. So that'll be more analysis for us. But as we stand today, Kev, I'll go with you first. How do you feel about the construction of this Florida State football team? What do we feel good? Do we feel this is a 10-win team, a 12-win team, an 8-win team? What do we think about the talent? Because we've talked about every single position group, who's in, who's out, potential weaknesses, strengths, how all those units work together. Now that you got kind of a fuzzy picture of the entire thing, how you feeling?
Yeah, I think the way it stands right now, I think you have a really solid football team. I think you have a football team that's not going to lose to teams that shouldn't lose to, if that makes sense. I think you have a team that, will take care of business against kind of the lower rung of the ACC. But I do have questions, if someone like, a well-coached Duke team that had a more talented quarterback and more talented defensive line than they had any right to last year walks into Doak and punches you in the mouth, do you have someone that can give you that punt return that gets your offense going? Do you have someone that can make 8 throws, consecutively that leads a couple of game-winning drives in a tough game? And that's the question. Do you have, to me, I think you have a team that's deep, that can win a lot of football games. But I question if you have a team that, is good enough to not drop one against good opponents like Clemson and Notre Dame. And so I think a 10-win team is where I'd put you right now. Maybe if you can get someone, a Keon Coleman in the portal, a real game changer on the offensive side of the ball, we might be talking about a team that can run it again. But right now, I just think you've got a team that's extremely solid, won't be disappointing, and will put you in a position to win every game. Whether or not they do is, up to the fates.
I think that's fair. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, I think Kev's pretty spot on. Offensively, can you do something besides be explosive in the passing game? Because I think that they've built themselves to be explosive in the passing game. Can you go out and be an efficient run game this year? Something they sorely missed last year that hindered them some. I mean, obviously, it was a good offense, a really good offense. Not trying to downplay that, but the running game was an issue. The lack of just efficiency overall. So, can you go do something besides be explosive? I think that will go a long way in your offense, just kind of being better and being able to beat some of the upper echelon teams that are going to be on your schedule, like Kev pointed out, Notre Dame, Miami potentially, Clemson. Because I think ultimately, the thing when you're having these conversations, when you sit down, you've got to remember you're in the ACC and you're going to play some crappy teams. There's some that just can't line up and really go to war with you based on where you've kind of built your program, assuming that the culture's there, even though everybody said the culture was dead, assuming that they show up and do the bare minimum of what they've shown they're capable of doing. Defensively, I don't know. I mean, I think that spot at safety is a concern. I still want to see this defensive line go take over a game. It sounds like Marvin Jones Jr. is maybe taking a little bit of a step here recently, but I would argue who he's taking those steps against.
You just got to see it. Right now, it's a lot of unknowns. I'd like to see it with my eyes, because there is the potential, if it all works if it works how they constructed it to work, you got a really good football team. If they could run the football with the backs that they brought in and the quarterback that they have that can take advantage of a defense that's on their heels and more efficient offense, that's great. If they could really overwhelm people on the defensive line with that depth and make it hard for people to run against you to where they're facing a lot of 3rd and longs against a very competent, long, athletic secondary, then it's a tough team to beat. But if one of those propositions doesn't go through, if they can't run the ball effectively, do they have the wide receivers to get the separation? Who's going to be the guy to make that catch in Death Valley in overtime to essentially win you a chance to go to the conference championship? Who's the guy on the defensive side of the ball that's going to get that strip sack? Like, does this team have the ability to play above their heads when they're having a subpar team effort to go and win a game maybe they ultimately shouldn't have? We don't know, but we'll find out together. For Adam, for Kevin, for me, I am Trey Rowland. Of course, if you're not on Noles247.com, you're a big dumb dummy, and I'm mad at you. Figure it out. Sign up. It's mega cheap. It's worth the money. You get a bunch of awesome entertainment content, and it's time to sign up, guys. Spring game, post-spring. Apocalypto portal is upon us. We will be here to analyze everything. We are here with you. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Subscribe to Noles 24/7 YouTube channel. Please, for the love of God, put your notifications on so I can stop saying it at the end of one of these videos. I'm tired of it. Put me out of my misery. Just do it. Anyway, I love you. We're going to be here forever, and we're going to be here with you forever, and we love you. Get ready. Spring game a coming.
Thank God.